Welcome to the Confidence Conversations podcast. I'm Gail from Enrichment Coaching, Clarity and Courage Coaching for Confidence, and I'm the founder and CEO, or actually I prefer Chief Enrichment Officer. I love to make a difference to those beliefs that you have about what you think you can and can't do. So the idea behind this podcast is to get the confidence conversation going, and I want to explore all the different views and opinions on confidence because there's loads out there. I'm going to be talking to lots of different people over the episodes and exploring their confidence. How do they know when it's at their strongest? How do they know when it's at their lowest? And how do they manage that? And I'll be asking them for their top tips or takeaways about how they enrich their own confidence. Now, just to be clear, these conversations won't have any fancy editing. They'll be organic and authentic, just letting the conversation flow. That said, I know I'll be curious, so there may be a hint of coaching and questioning along the way. So, let's go. Hi everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Confidence Conversations podcast. So today I'm delighted to welcome the lady who has the best 60-second pitch at networking that I've ever seen, and it's Melanie Griffiths from Movement Junkie. Hello.
Hi.
Now we met at networking, and your 60-second pitch is like a movement minute. And the first time I did that in my little office, I nearly headbutted the desk because I hadn't realised that we had to get up and do something. So before we go on to talk about that, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie from Movement Junkie, and it kind of does what it says on the tin, really. I am a movement maven. And this is with all kinds of movement, dance, energy movement as well. So I do healing work. I do healing work through movement. I do dance fitness. I do strength and conditioning. I am all about moving through whatever to be more of who you are in your body. I think that's probably it in a nutshell.
Yeah, brilliant. And hence the movement, the movement minute at networking, which was just brilliant, which really gets everyone going as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where that came from. I think it was someone else in the group was doing something that was other than just speaking. And as I have never been really confident, with the 60-second pitch, I thought, what can I do that is me? And I thought, move. That is my thing. It's what I've done my whole life, is move. And so I created these 60-second minute mixes. And it was surprising to me how much you can actually do in a minute. That was the thing that came out of it for me. It was like, wow, you can actually get a lot of movement into a minute.
Yeah, and amazing for me as well when I did, it was PBE, Portsmouth Business Exchange, great networking group if you've not attended it, but and it was, I think it was January the first one I went to, and then they were like, right, and if you don't, you've got to move. And I was like, what, move in my little office? Then I thought, God, I've got a Zoom wardrobe on for a start, hope no one can see me, nearly headbutted the desk. But the energy in the room really shifts after that, doesn't it? Because it starts at like 8 o'clock as well.
Yeah. And it's amazing how much you can shift in that minute. That's the other thing. It was like, and even if people aren't into movement, they watch with enthusiasm and humor, because obviously I can't see everyone because there's so many in the little boxes. So I always love to hear, where people have taken off the stapler with their arm or something that was on the desk, or the dogs got in the way, or but it is amazing that there's so many things that came out of that. It's amazing how you can move in a small space, how much you can do in a small space, and how you can shift yourself in such a short amount of time, and just almost distraction. So even if like some of the movement mixes were just stupidly fast, but the music was good, and I thought, I'll just go with this. And even then, if people it's more of a whirlwind effect, they're still distracted. And you know this, Gail, they're still distracted their mind enough that things shift.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. So I was really interested to hear you say as well at the beginning, I'm not confident with the 60-second pitch. I don't know that there is anybody that actually is. But I think that by doing what you do, immediately you become that confident person, because actually, like you said, oh, what can I do that's different? Well, I'll move because that's me. Yeah. So it comes back to this whole, when you're I think when you're confident in what you do, and you're able to project that confidence out to others, because I would never have said that you weren't confident at that 60-second pitch. And actually, quite honestly, you know, it takes a lot to do dance movement that early on a networking, because it's completely different to what anyone else would do. So I really admire you for doing that.
It did take a bit of setup as well.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
I'd have to cut the track to get the right bit of the music at the right time, and then set it up like I was teaching a class, because otherwise you don't get the audio's got to be right. You've got to have that which has taken me the year of the COVID year and a half to learn all of those things that every other movement person out there who's been getting online has been doing as well. So
we had time to practice, I suppose, in COVID to get that right as well. Yeah, brilliant. So Melanie, talk to me then about what confidence means to you.
Oh, I love this question, because I thought, gosh, there's so many things it can mean, but I think for me it really means about being in alignment with what I would call source or higher self, or what, you know, everybody's got a different name for that part of themselves, and or being that truest part of me out there. Because then it's not, I've got this picture of what confidence is that came from, I think, probably the media, society, school. I can definitely think of that was a part of it, and it's taken me a long time to deprogram those elements of that out of me, so that I can actually just be myself out there, and then it's natural. And so it's almost not an issue of confidence, it's just me. But because I'm being my true self, everything just flows. And I think then the people on the outside look at that and go, oh, she's confident. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes yeah. And I love this thing about, and I think what's happened with this question over the podcast is people have gone, oh, I love this question because it's really made me stop and think what confidence means to me, where we'd kind of banned the word around quite a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
But what I'm really interested, obviously I'm interested in the fact, you know, about it being in alignment with the source and your higher self and being the truest part of me. But I'm also interested in this whole, I've got a picture of what confidence is that's given to me by media, society, school. Talk to me a little bit about what you mean by that.
Oh, okay. How long have we got? The other thing I wanted to point out, I just noticed I'm gesturing with my hands, and we're on.
That's fine. That's fine.
I think school was the first thing that came up, and I think about that linear academic training, and I'm a child of the 70s, so that would be a particular kind of approach. And the confidence was that you were bold, possibly pushy, you were overselling, I want to say. You were kind of trying to make people like you, or if it's a product you're selling, trying to make them buy the product. And actually, the sense I have when I think about that is a disconnection from myself. It's the absolute opposite to what I really believe. It's a disconnection. So then I'm in the space, if I'm doing that, where I'm trying to portray this persona, and at the same time feeling more drained inside. That's kind of what I think, and I think I picked that up in school and watched. I would probably, I mean, I'm not drawing any particular memory at the moment, but I would have probably had some teachers where things flowed and they were a great modeling example, and other teachers where they were teaching rote, teaching by textbook, or teaching what they thought we should know. And I personally wouldn't have responded to that. And then the media, oh my God. Medias, the social medias, the television medias. Well, there's so many ideas, isn't there, out there? You know, our worlds are filled with celebrities, whether they are celebrities from the big screen, whether they are celebrities from YouTube or the social medias themselves. And I think, and I don't know where this picture comes from, I think there is a sort of perception that every time someone does something on the social medias or the media that is considered, I don't know, bold, noteworthy, whatever, that is a picture of what confidence is at this point in time. And yeah, and again, it's just another red herring to throw you off being connected to yourself. And I'm on this, I'm always on this mission, but I'm on this mission more than usual of, you know, get back to being you, or in my case, me, and come from that place, whether I'm in personal relationships, whether I'm, you know, putting my stuff out on social media, whether I'm teaching a class, whether I'm having a conversation like we are now. That is when I'm properly in a state of confidence, in that place. That was a very long.
No, it wasn't. It's so interesting, the whole kind of how we pick confidence up throughout society, school, and those things that influence our confidence. So I mean, if you think back to, as you were talking, I was thinking back to school, you know, and I was at a dancing school as well, for many years. And I always remember thinking that I was quite confident. And my mum tells a great story about kind of, I ended up at the back in something and just kind of barged my way to the front. I mean, I wasn't very old, but you know, there you go. But there's your inner child that almost doesn't care about, well, I don't care, I want to be at the front, right? I want to be at the front of the, but I would never do that now in a million years. Want to be, you know, when you go into a room to a, I don't know, a conference or a training session or whatever, you go for the back, don't you? Nobody wants to sit at the front, but the kids don't care. And I sometimes wish we could channel some of that inner child self into kind of our confidence now with almost a devil may care kind of attitude. And I can totally think about teachers that were where it just flowed, to use your word, and I love that. And I think when you're in that flow, that's when confidence comes naturally as well. And I can think about those specifically, but also think about teachers that I just didn't gel with, and again, like you, didn't respond to. And then the whole media thing is just, well, God, I mean, I don't think we need to talk about that in any more detail, do we? Because I think everybody's suffered, particularly in the last 18 months, around comparison-itis over social, and you know, it being the show reel of life, and people only posting when they're doing amazing things and not showing you the days that are really dark. And there has been more of those kind of dark days, but I guess people do that because what they get is this instant boost of some kind of hormone that says, oh, I'm getting loads of likes on that, I must be doing all right. It gives me a little bit of, I want to say, fake confidence, I suppose, in that sense. I know,
well, that's it. We're still responding to that external validation, aren't we? That's the game, whatever it. And I think I have this love-hate relationship with social media.
Me too.
I know we've had this conversation before, and I can see how great it can be. And for businesses, for those of us running our own businesses, it's really good. It's really good. But I think it can also create deep levels of distortion that we don't necessarily pick up in ourselves, where, like you say, we get lots of likes and then we respond to that, and already then we're disconnected from that internal part. And yet social media can be an amazing platform for showcasing everything. So it's just learning to navigate it, isn't it? And
finding that balance, I think, that works for you, isn't it? That's because I think, and you and I are probably the same, I think on social we try to be quite real, and we try to talk about stuff that we're doing and things that are happening for us. And actually I had some really lovely feedback yesterday from somebody that I used to work with, who said, what I'm seeing on set, and this was me in an employed way that I work with this person, and she said, oh, what I'm seeing on social from you is the real Gail, the Gail that I knew, but what you're helping me to do is to put things in context so I can talk about you in relating to kind of what you do now. And actually I reflected on that last night and thought, God, do you know what, that was unsolicited feedback. I didn't ask for that, but that was really nice, because back to your point about connecting with kind of the truest part of you, that's what I've tried to do. And she's somebody that I probably haven't interacted with since, I think she said 2013, so it's been a massive space of time. And I was quite glad about that, because that's what I've tried to be true to who I am.
I think that's it, isn't it? We have to. I just don't, because I've been looking at this a lot recently with social media, and I've thought, I cannot just put stuff out there that doesn't mean anything to me. I can't, and forgive me here for those of you who love photographing your food. I cannot just photograph food just for the sake of it. It has to kind of mean something to me. And I said to my partner, I said, I don't always remember to photograph the things we do because we're out there just enjoying it. It doesn't even occur to me to have the phone with me. So yeah. I think that's kind of important to remember too.
To enjoy things in real life and not through the lens of the camera or this got to put something on social or
capture everything.
Somebody said that to me the other day. We went out for lunch and I got my phone out to take a picture of the food. She was like, oh my God, you're not one of those people, are you? And I was like, no, I'm sending it to Paul because he's having manky old salad at home and I'm here having this lovely lunch. So he was like, no, that's not right. But it's interesting, isn't it? The assumptions then people make that actually you must be photographing that to put that on social because you want everyone to know that you're out having a fabulous time.
Yes.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me then about, and I think I might know what you might say here, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. When you see or feel your confidence at its strongest, what does that look like for you?
Oh, in terms of,
just be in general, just kind of generally. So I guess if I was, because I know you and I know you're, go on.
It
just came.
Here we go. I'm literally just listening to myself and responding. And it is like download, act. There is no second guessing. I know.
Oh, she writes that down rapidly.
Download, act. And there is no second guessing. And I'm thinking of like a day really. And the day is flowing and I'm getting the things done that are important to my bigger picture, as opposed to what I call the minutiae, getting lost in trailing through the Facebook feed of like, or answering every minutiae email kind of thing. And I think that's it. I'm just present. I'm completely present. And I feel good in my body. I feel my mind feels open. I feel connected, and I'm going to use that confident word. I feel confident. And I'm just acting on things.
I love the download, act. I really love that. And kind of no second guessing. I'm just going with it because that is what gives me that. I'd also love you to just share with the listeners, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but about your cancer journey.
Oh yeah, no.
Because this story is just incredible.
Well, I love talking about it because I think one of my reasons for being in the world is I like to be able to inspire people. So, and I don't mean that from an egotistical place. I love when someone gets something out of something I've done or said, and it goes and changes their life. They do something differently and they feel better for it. And that, I always think, I get this feeling of tick, my job is done, literally. So 18 years ago, I can't believe it's 18 years ago now, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer. I believe it's adenocarcinoma. I can't remember all the technicalities around it. And there are several different kinds of cervical cancer. It was the more serious kind. So there is a kind that you can have what they call lasering the top cells of the cervix off. There is that one out there. Like I said, I don't retain technical information well. But this was the more serious kind. And as a result, the medical doctors at the time gave me 6 months to live if I did nothing medically. And bear in mind, what they were prescribing was a radical hysterectomy, radiation of the lymph nodes or the ovaries, and removal of things were being removed and things were being radiated. I haven't written it all down. I'm actually writing my story. And I just decided I wasn't going to do that. I'd had, prior to this, it's a bit of a long story, I'm trying to kind of shorten it unless the podcast goes on for days. I'd lived out in California for about 7 years prior to that, and was doing a lot of mind body work. So I was studying and learning and making the connection between the mind, the emotions, and what goes on in the body. So by the time I got the cancer diagnosis, there were some pieces already in place. And as soon as I got the diagnosis, and I knew I didn't want to do what the doctors wanted me to do, and I'd never been a big fan of traditional medicine anyway. I believe it has its place, and I believe it has different places for different people at different times in their lives. And for me at that time, it wasn't the right thing. And so I basically sat for about a week in and out of meditation and just kind of sat with things. I was early 30s? So I wanted to, and I hadn't had children, wanted to preserve my right to have children. So I wanted to keep my body parts. And when I think about, when I say this now, I think, well, I should just be allowed to keep my body parts whether I use them or not.
Yeah.
So I didn't have children, and I'm past that point now, and that was a choice. But yeah, I wanted to keep my womb. I didn't want to get rid of it. So I just, out of this meditation, I came out with two things. I knew I needed to move back to the UK, and I was in a marriage at the time that I wasn't happy in, and I knew I needed to get out of the marriage. So I came back to the UK and moved back in with my parents at 32, which is always an interesting thing. If anybody's done that, high five me right now. And I basically decided I was going to heal myself holistically. I actually used the F word. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on the podcast. So
yeah, go for it.
You. I said, fuck that. Cancer is not taking me out. When I go, it's on my own terms. Brilliant. And that was kind of, that started the journey. And it took me 4 years, and I did all kinds of things, movement, diet, other exercise, sorting out family relationships, journaling, meditation. I call it ripping up the floorboards of who I was. So I completely transformed myself and my life. And I remember I woke up one morning, roughly about 4 years later, and thought, it's time to go and get another smear test. And I'd moved from one country to another. So I was at this point dealing with some local doctors who hadn't been a part of this journey. And I had made the decision to stay away from doctors while I was doing this healing, as I wanted to preserve a high vibration mindset of positive energy, which is what I did. So I went and got this smear test, and it came back clear. And it was like, oh my God, this stuff works.
Do you know, I've heard you say that you tell your story a couple of times now, and obviously we've met and talked about it as well, but each time you say it just gives me goosebumps all over, because just this whole, even just starting where you just said you sat with things, you just let things settle, you just sit with them. And I don't think we do that enough generally, actually. Yeah. We let things kind of all consume us, and we don't sit with things and go, that's okay, I'm just going to sit with that for a while so that I can get absolute clarity about what I've got to do here.
Yeah.
And I think we could all probably all be a bit more Mel there, right? And we could all do a little bit more of that. And then this whole ripping up the floorboards piece of who you were, completely understanding everything. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is that you must have had such a level of confidence that you could achieve that. Real self-belief.
People always say that, and I think they're probably right, but I was angry. I was really fucking angry. I was like, I'm not having this. I was very unhappy in my life prior to that point. And so I consider cancer a gift. It gave me the opportunity to completely turn my life around. And I don't know if I'd be doing all the things I'm doing today if I hadn't made that decision. And I was so angry. I was like, no, I'm not having this. I have barely started my life. I'd had health issues prior to that, which was also fairly dramatic. And that was about 5 years earlier. So it was like I just made this decision. I thought, one of two things is going to happen here. I'm either going to survive or I'm not. But I'm sure as hell not going to go down a passive route and have them remove all these bits of body parts, and that's going to kill me off anyway, because there's all kinds of thinking around cancer, particularly in the holistic community, and there's all kinds of work out there about how effective some of the medical processes are, whether they're effective or not, and whether they work for different people. So I looked at it clairvoyantly, which is part of the training I'd had prior to all this, and I went, if I go down that road, I'm not going to survive. I'm going to lose the body parts. But even if I do exist as a shell, I will be so deeply unhappy inside myself, I will have nothing to give the world. So at least the path I'm taking, I'm either going to soar and survive and have stuff to talk about and share, or I will have died trying. And that in itself, I think, is worth something. This is my whole approach to life.
I mean, it was just totally inspirational and really small things. So when you say about impact, so I think I said to you when I first heard your story, I'd got a letter kind of sitting next to me saying, you must book your smear test. And nobody likes going for those, right? But after hearing your story, that it spurred me into action. And I went, and I had no reason to believe that it was going to be anything other than, okay. But it kind of spurred me into action, thinking, God, well, you know what, if you can go through all of that, and then I can go for a bloody smear test at the doctor's kind of thing. But I just think your mindset is just inspirational to just deal with it in that way, and really, really brave, because I guess the natural route when you're diagnosed with something like that is to put all of your trust and all of your confidence in the medical profession. But you didn't. Your trust was in you.
But I think it's also the history I'd had. So the history prior to that, which involves menstrual problems, and I'd had horrific menstrual hemorrhaging from the age of 16, and then so this is what I call the first near-death experience. I ended up in ER, which is the equivalent of our A&E here in the States, with a period that did not stop, and I was the colour of snow. I couldn't stand up, and I was throwing up. And I was taken to A&E, and I was rushed through a ward of, and we were living in Berkeley, Oakland area, which can be a little bit rough. So I was rushed through a ward of stab victims and things like that. I had no idea how sick I was at that point. With the menstrual hemorrhaging, and had to have progesterone shots. And so that had gone on. And even prior to that, back in the UK as a teenager, when I'd had these periods that would last 3 weeks, that would go every 2 weeks, where I'd wake up in the early hours of the morning soaking the bed linen. And I'd been into hospital, and I think they'd done what was called a D&C. I don't even know if that sort of stuff still exists now, where they go in and they look at the womb. They told me nothing was wrong. They could find nothing wrong. And one doctor, fortunately, I don't remember his name, otherwise I would be shaming him on here, actually said to me, it's all in your head. Wow. And that was at 18. Said to me, it's all in your head. And I think a part of me thought, well, if it's all in my head, then that's where I'm going to go and deal with it.
Impact of words is just massive, isn't it?
Massive, isn't it? Yeah. So already that distrust in the medical profession for me was there. And I've also liked to handle my well-being on my own terms. So I think the combination and that crescendo point of getting that diagnosis, it was almost like a part of me, and this is the dancer in me coming out, was like, it's showtime. And it was. Yeah.
I love that. Almost like, well, let's go. We're ready. We're ready to put on a show.
And it was like everything I'd learned up to that point was all theory. And then in that moment, I got to put it all into practice. I thought, this is one hell of an experiment here.
One hell of a show as well.
And it worked. And I thought, this stuff really works. It really works.
Brilliant.
God. But I had to do, but I always like to say to people, I had to be prepared to do whatever it took. And I did rip up my life completely. And I lost friends. I gained new friends. Some old friends came back. Some hung about for the whole journey. It wasn't easy. There were, family were not necessarily on board. I had to train them. So what I will say to people in that situation, you have to be prepared to walk through fire to get there.
I also think you have to do what's right for you, don't you, in that moment. And you clearly knew that was the right thing for you to do, without a doubt, I think. I think going back to kind of what you were saying, I think you did a lot of download act there. Because
it did.
Definitely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what about a time, I love that story, by the way, it's just so inspirational, and I'm looking forward to hearing it again, because each time you say something, you hear something different as
I
well,
know, and
something new
each
that I
time
didn't know.
yeah, and each time I say it, I think I either say it a bit differently or I see something different in it as well.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's because I'm constantly looking at it as because you don't stay in that state of recovery, then we drop back into maintenance. And I know for me, definitely over the years, I've kind of dropped back and I've had to go, oh no, it doesn't stop. The work doesn't stop. You have to keep feeding into the well-being, otherwise you just trickle backwards.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, so I look at the story a lot too, that, or at
Yeah,
least that part of it is
it's
still
just
going.
brilliant. And you said that you're writing, are you writing a book here?
I am.
Oh my God, this is
And
amazing.
I've started doing more blog posts and things, generally because I want to get out more of the understanding I have that came out of the way I approached having cancer. And I started writing the story, and I've wanted to write this for years, and people have told me to write it. And I'm in a group at the moment, and somebody who is a writer said to me, if you can just sit down and write 20 minutes a day, you'll have it finished in a few months. And I thought, I can do that. That is doable.
Yeah.
And so I started. So I thought, just get it going.
Oh well, we'll have to have another chat when you've got that out, then definitely. When your book's ready. Yeah, you'll be dancing everywhere with that, down the street with your book in hand. So tell me about a time then when your confidence is kind of at its lowest.
So I think it's when I doubt myself. I think it's like, it can be when I've had a bad night's sleep and I get up and I'm disconnected, or I wake up and I don't have the time to do the things I need to do in the morning, which might be journaling, meditating, movement, some combination of that. So then there's a disconnect, and I go into the day in that disconnect. And then it's like I'm kind of wide open. And then if I do something like go on social media, back to that again, from that place, and I see someone, say, in a similar field to me with huge success, the doubt gets bigger, the comparisonitis, as you call it, I love that, sets in. And then the hole grows bigger. And I have to, and until I take the time to stop and go, right, this ends now and you need to reset. What are you going to do? Yeah.
Yeah, and someone else described it as like a snowball effect,
Yes.
like a snowball of confidence. And it was in a different context, but I think you're right. I think if it starts with when you talked about doubting yourself, I mean, yeah, self-doubt comes up loads, doesn't it? And then everything kind of snowballed from there. So you'd had a bad night's sleep, your morning routine had been completely affected, so you're already all out of sorts, aren't you? Then you go on social media and you see this show reel of life, and you said, oh, and you see someone who's being really successful according to their show reel of life, not to probably real life, which is important to remember. And then this whole comparisonitis, so you're kind of picking things up on the way, aren't you, making it into like this massive mountain that it doesn't need to be. And I love also to hear you sort of say, right, this needs to stop, because I think these are some of the tactics that we don't always have, and I think I've learned that, to kind of go, I could hear myself saying something the other day, or I could hear Betty saying something the other day to me about moaning on, and I actually heard myself say out loud, Gail, stop. And I think Paul was upstairs, he was like, you okay? I was like, yeah, just chatting to Betty kind of thing. And I was like, just stop, because I could hear this kind of negative snowball kind of happening, but we have to recognize that and not let it keep going and keep going and keep going.
And we have to be listening and hear. This is the other thing I've noticed, and I've been doing a lot of work recently around this kind of stuff, and I realized, one, I wasn't hearing a lot of the diatribe that was going on. I needed to tune into that first. I was like, is this the flavor of my thoughts? This is what's going on. And then the other thing that I've been looking at recently is this idea of decision. I did a little live last week talking about it, of actually making that commitment and decision in yourself that you are changing something. And it's like, a part of me didn't believe I could just make that decision. I had to kind of do some other things and then it would happen. And with some of the journaling stuff I've been doing recently, I've realized, oh no, I make that decision. I decide that is what is happening. And then the world revolves around me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the focus is back in the right place on you, where it should, where it absolutely should be as well. And your point about kind of hearing yourself, again, we don't do that, and I often find in coaching that I'll say something and I'll say, oh, hang on, I've just heard you say, and this person will go, oh God, yeah, I did that, didn't I? One of the things that people say a lot in coaching when you ask a question is the first thing they go is, I don't know. And I say, right, I have a bit of a ban on I don't know, because once you've said you don't know, you don't know. You're not going to be able to now find the answer. And the minute they go, I don't, and then they go, oh no, I can't say that, can I? It's raising their awareness, isn't it, to kind of the things that you're telling yourself that give you kind of this self-doubt and the diatribe. I love that. I'm picking up all these things. I've got loads of notes. You'll be seeing all of this coming to social media near you soon, probably. Yeah, I'll quote you. We're doing hand gestures for everyone listening, by the way. Yeah, so no one can see us. It's fine. So tell me how confidence helps you then in what you do.
Oh, I think it allows me to go and do things that I am not sure I'm capable of doing to expand my work. So this would be, my latest thing is doing more Facebook Lives. I find them ridiculously uncomfortable. And people always think because I teach and I'm out in front of people that I'm naturally confident. And I'm like, oh, that's a load of bollocks. I was a really shy child and a very reluctant performer. I was a really reluctant performer, but I have now found my way into movement and dance in a way that is healing. And so I've done a lot of work around that. But so confidence allows me to follow through on an idea. So I want to get more digital courses and things out there around self-healing and movement. Excuse me, I've got like a, excuse me.
Not COVID, everyone. We're in separate rooms.
Yes, separate rooms. And Gail's just drinking the water that I should be drinking right now. And so if I've got an idea for a course or something I want to do, confidence gives me I don't know why the word Schutzpart is coming to mind, but the Schutzpart to just go, I'm just going to put that out there. I'm going to get it set up. I'm going to put that out there and I'm going to tell people this is what I'm doing. And it stops all of the faffing and the dithering and the should I, shouldn't I, and will this work? Will they like it? It's like, I think, oh, I'm going to swear again. I think, oh, fuck that. I like it. This is what I want to do. I want to share this with the world. And people will find me, the people that want to do what I'm doing, or I will just get a healing out of it. Yay.
And you'll learn something along the way, won't you? And if it doesn't quite go how you planned, then actually what does that matter? And you know, you've described one of my favorite sayings is, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And you'd kind of describe that with a Facebook Live. Massively uncomfortable. You have no idea who's watching, nobody's there, no one might turn up, but you know what, the more you do it, again, the more comfortable it will become. Absolutely. And then you'll be able to go off and do the next thing that you feel like that about.
Brilliant. Exactly.
So Mel, tell me what top tip or takeaway you'd like to share with the listeners about confidence.
Oh gosh, start listening to yourself, people. But I would say get a practice in place that allows you to start listening to yourself, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditating, whether it's going for a run, whether I did all of that when I had cancer, gardening. Do something that allows you to slow down mentally so you can start listening. So you can start to unpick the crap that's in there that's telling you that you're a load of crap. That's not very spiritual, is it? But that is just what it's about. We sit there listening to all this rubbish and then we go acting on it because we're not doing anything differently. So I would say, people, stop. And just, get in there and listen. And then
I really wanted to sing kind of Well, who is it? Is it MC Hammer? Stop, collaborate and listen. Forget the collaborate bit for now.
Yes.
Just listen. Well, actually collaborate with yourself, the nicer self of you. I'm not going to sing, don't worry. But yeah, that is kind of is the theme tune to that, isn't it? Like, you know, stop, collaborate and listen to yourself. Like you said, so you can just unpick the crap that you don't need all of that. You definitely.
And the big thing, none of this is actually complicated.
No.
I really don't like, God, I have to say this, I really don't like it when people put stuff out there and they make it sound so complicated. Healing, because it's not complicated. Healing, self-healing, it is just a case of being prepared to show up, listen, change the story, take action, move forward.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's it. Yeah.
Great advice. Thank you. Look, it's been a pleasure. We could chat for like hours and hours as we did. And I missed the hovercraft back to the mainland when I went over to the Isle of Wight for breakfast. And yes, I think I got back I think I had a Zoom at like 2:00 and I think I got back here at 2 minutes to 2.
Right. Yeah.
It's brilliant. It was brilliant. So Mel, tell the listeners, we'll put all of this in the show notes, but tell the listeners where they can find you if they want to connect with you.
So on Facebook, my business page is Movement Junkie. On Instagram, the handle is Movement Melanie. And I am on LinkedIn, but I don't use it quite as much. It's Melanie Griffiths. And
of course, you can just stalk my profiles and I'm fine because we do follow each other. So
yes, we do.
If we're not connected, you can stalk me and find Mel and connect that way. Oh, look, it's been brilliant chatting to you. Thank you so much for being a guest, and we'll come back to you as a guest when you've got your book released.
Thank you,
It's been great to see you. Thank you.
Just really enjoyed this. Thanks so much.
Welcome. So join us next time on the Confidence Conversations podcast.